This is the voiceover presentation for Chapter 11 in the Rothermel textbook on organizational design. A key aspect of strategy formulation is designing an organization that creates the foundations for superior strategy implementation. In this chapter, we discuss the structures, systems, and cultures that guide the behavior of employees. Organization design has three primary components. Structures focus on the job roles that exist within a firm, how those jobs are organized into hierarchies, and the cross-organizational communication streams that help people stay in touch with colleagues that work in different departments. Second, control systems are the policies and incentive systems that guide the choices and behaviors of employees as they do their jobs. Last, culture covers the informal mechanisms that shape how people behave within the organization. Notice that each of these three tools influence how people behave when they're at work. In terms of strategic management, people are far from perfect. Unlike machines or technologies, people don't always do what we expect them to do. They get distracted when they're excited about their kids or are having an argument with their spouse or just want to talk about a show that was on the night before. People get sick, they get burned out, they quit. Organizational design is there to overcome these challenges, ready to help the organization pursue success despite human imperfections. Managers can tell if they have created a strong organization design if they achieve three objectives. First, great organizations have direction. This means that everybody is working toward the same overarching goals, even if they are in different departments or in different locations. Second, great organizations achieve coordination, meaning that people are not only working toward the same goals, they are working together in pursuit of those goals. Last, the best organizations inspire people to work together and do so with energy and excitement. Designing a great organization is a balancing act. When an organization becomes too complex or too overbearing, it can force people into boxes and procedures that are so tightly defined that they have no freedom to innovate or think creatively. On the other hand, organizations with not enough structure or control can make people feel lost. Imagine going to work every day and not being sure of what you are supposed to do or who is responsible for making decisions. The goal is to find the right design, whatever that is, that turns imperfect people into excellent implementers of a firm's strategies. Great design supports employees from top to bottom by creating a line of sight between their activities and the performance of the firm as a whole, encouraging them to effectively work together, and helping them enjoy their work. Formally defined, organizational structure is a configuration of roles, governance, authority, and decision-making channels. In practical terms, structure boils down to three things. First of all, structures are based on job roles or specifications of how each employee contributes to the firm. For each job role, a job description provides information about the duties and responsibilities for those individuals. Secondly, hierarchies map out boss-subordinate relationships, decision rights, communication flows, and importantly, where accountability lies for assigned duties. The third aspect of structure is ensuring that people who are not in the same hierarchical paths are able to effectively communicate with each other. That is, information and decisions don't just flow up and down through an organization's hierarchy, they also flow among people who are not in the same reporting relationships. To see how these things actually work within organizations, let's go through a couple of common organizational structures. The simple structure is typical of most small firms, say less than 50 people. At the top is a CEO who is most likely to be a founder or the primary shareholder. In almost every case, this person is likely to make most or all key strategic decisions. While this person may also have one or two trusted people at the top, the CEO will have full control over all aspects of the firm. The organization will be very flat, and the size of the organization will make structured cross-organizational communication redundant since everybody in the firm is likely to know one another anyway. However, problems arise when the company becomes too big for that CEO to make all the decisions. If that person gets absorbed into a particular new business opportunity or solving a particular problem, or if they simply take a vacation sometime, the whole organization can get bogged down. When the simple structure becomes an impediment to good decision-making, growing firms make a move to a functional structure. Here, the CEO remains at the top of the organization but delegates responsibilities for specific areas of the business to trusted, trained people in targeted job roles. So instead of the CEO making all the decisions and power are delegated to the heads of various functional areas, who then have managers and employees working for them. Adding layers and specializations makes a structure more complex. First, the job roles have to be created so responsibilities are properly assigned, and the firm has to fill those jobs with well-trained individuals. Hierarchical layers have to be added, separating the CEO from others within the organization. These steps may create silos, which makes communication across the organization that much more difficult. So deciding to move to a functional structure from a simple structure involves both costs and benefits. Deciding which one is right for an organization comes down to a decision of which one best allows the firm to create and implement winning strategies. As they continue to grow, some organizations get so big that different aspects of their businesses require specialization even within the functional areas. At this point, firms adopt a multi-divisional structure. For instance, in the slide I have here, I've divided up a large firm into two regional divisions, one for Europe, Middle East, and Asia market, and one for the Americas market. At the top is a CEO at headquarters. But within the different divisions, there are replicated functional structures dividing out activities in finance, marketing, and production. Notice that the presidents in this structure look a lot like the CEOs from the functional structure. The benefit of this type of structure is that the regions can tailor their activities to needs of their specific markets. For instance, the VP of Finance in the Americas can focus on how that particular division would manage its money rather than worry about how it gets done around the world. Of course, the siloed activities and the cross-organizational communication patterns just became that much more complicated. The idea is that the specification within the regions outweighs the cost of creating and sustaining more intense cross-organizational communication channels. And last, note that a multi-divisional structure does not have to rest just on regions. There are lots of different ways to create an M-form company. The biggest challenge to the M-form is the cross-organizational communication. Because of the divisional structure, firms have found it very difficult to build relationships and share ideas and information among people who work in different divisions, even if they have similar job roles. To address that, firms created what they call a matrix structure. Matrix structures are nothing more than two structures, often one of them a functional structure, laid on top of one another. On this slide, we have a functional structure going across the top and a regional structure going down the vertical. There will be a person responsible for each of those units, say a VP of Finance and a President of the Americas. The matrix is evident in the middle. Here, there are managers and employees that are in the hierarchies of the two different areas. For instance, in the upper left-hand corner is a manager that would be responsible to both the VP of Finance and the President of EMEA. And then reporting to that manager would be a traditional team of employees. The strategic advantage of the matrix is that the people in the middle are formally in both communication streams that impact on how well they do their job. The manager in the upper left would be an expert in the EMEA market as well as tapped into all the tools and resources of the Worldwide Finance Group. Theoretically, this is an enticing option for large companies because of the cross-organizational communication and cooperation that it encourages. Practically, however, the matrix is difficult to implement. The challenges start with the fact that the people in the matrix have two bosses, and that's rarely a good thing. For most of us, working for one person isn't all that easy. The problems explode if the two bosses don't talk to one another, or don't agree with one another, or both want full-time work commitments from the one direct report. So this structure, while theoretically strong, runs into problems simply because the people within the matrix get pulled apart. To address this challenge without giving up the benefits of the matrix, some firms modify the traditional structure by using dotted line reporting relationships. In the slide, I just changed the verticals from solid to dotted lines. The solid lines continue to mark formal boss-subordinate arrangements. The dotted lines, however, represent communication streams between people, but without reporting relationships. So in this modification in that upper left corner, the manager only reports to the president of EMEA while still remaining in the communication stream of the finance department. Notice that structure is an evolution within a firm. The whole idea is to find the structure that best suits the firm's pursuit of performance. The right organizational structure tries to balance simplicity and flexibility with the appropriate amount of complexity that comes along with the dedication and specialization of expertise to make the firm work as well as it can. If structures delineate what jobs people do, systems and cultures shape how they do those jobs. Let's start with control systems. Control systems are essentially a set of mandates ranging from formal rules and strict policies down to guidelines and commonly held practices that provide guidance on how business is supposed to be done within the organization. Said more simply, control systems are the rules for work within a firm. Organizational control systems come in a wide variety of forms. Generalizing, we can break control systems into output controls and behavioral controls. Output controls simply look at what people produce rather than how they produce it. Think of this as setting quotas for a salesperson or production requirements for a plant manager. Once the quotas or production standards are set, the managers go about achieving those metrics on their own. Behavioral systems, conversely, focus on guiding people's behaviors with the expectation that good results will follow. We experience behavioral controls in everything from standard operating procedures to knowing what forms need to be filled out in order to take a week of vacation. Here are some general ways that an employee would experience control systems that draw upon both output and behavioral perspectives. First, annual reviews act as a control system. By reviewing prior performance and setting future expectations, managers can clearly indicate what is important to their direct reports. And if the performance reviews are formal and added to an employee's records, like they are at most organizations, employees have every reason to comply. Second, employees often codify activities that are either very important or very routine into standard operating procedures or employee handbooks. These procedures help people stay in compliance with formal requirements. Third, incentive systems, such as individual or team bonus structures, most certainly influence how people behave. When they are properly constructed, incentive systems directly align the best interests of the organization with the best interests of the employees. Last, the proliferation of IT and accounting systems significantly impact how people do their jobs because they highly influence the flow of information. In all, these control systems have significant effects on how work gets done. Through performance reviews, formal procedures, and incentive and IT systems, employees will have a map for success. Conversely, those same organizational systems help managers know when employees don't follow procedures or aren't doing their jobs, signaling that corrective actions are required. The third aspect of organization design is culture. An organization's culture describes the informal norms of behavior adopted by its employees. There are more formal ways of defining culture, many of them based on values, beliefs, and norms, but my favorite definition is one of the most basic, the way we do things around here. If culture is the way we do things around here, where do those norms come from? They arise from repeated behaviors. For instance, culture often begins with a founder of an organization or an iconic leader from the firm's early days. These individuals achieve legendary status because they are able to craft and build a successful business, and the spirit of those legends may continue to shape an organization in the current day. Most new companies struggle at the outset to find the right product portfolio or the right way of making decisions, but once they stumble on something that works, they are likely to repeat it, and those repeated behaviors become the way we do things around here. The people who find those paths to success essentially blaze a trail for their successors. Other ways to shape culture are through major events, especially things that have an impact on the psyche of an organization, such as layoffs or a fantastically successful new product launch, or major new hires, like replacing a CEO or a key manager, or even competitive threats that serve as rallying cries for the organization. How people respond to these situations often shapes its culture in the future. Culture is something that evolves differently at each firm. Cultures are truly idiosyncratic. There are no two companies that have the same culture. This means that there's not just one right culture to pursue. Consider two different ways of describing culture: strong versus weak, and static versus adaptive. In a weak culture, people act very individualistically when they're doing their job. While they may enjoy each other's company in a personal sense, tight relationships aren't key to superior organizational performance. On the other hand, people within companies with strong cultures often display cohesiveness around certain types of behavior, such as the way they approach innovation or expectations for responding to customers. Which of the two is better? It depends. It depends on what best enables people to do great work. If a firm is better off by allowing people to work independently, a weak culture is probably just fine. Forcing them to work tightly together could actually make them less productive. On the other hand, organizations that benefit when people share information, especially ones that want to be innovative or creative, such as advertising agencies, they will likely value the cohesiveness that comes with a strong, tight-knit culture. Similarly, there are differences between static cultures and adaptive cultures. Static cultures tend to be consistent, enduring. They have a constant presence in the marketplace. Other firms are more adaptable, more willing to change and morph. Which is best? Again, it depends. Both have their advantages and their disadvantages, making the right choice dependent on what the firm is trying to achieve. So just like structures and systems, an organization's culture has to be managed in the pursuit of success. A firm's culture has to support its initiatives. If it doesn't, if the culture is prompting people to behave in ways that are not aligned with the firm's strategies or its business environments, then managers have to put in the hard work of changing the culture. And this can be done by instilling new views on what success really means, or describing how strategic concerns inside or outside the firm require new ways of getting things done, or even hiring or firing influential people. To close, organization systems and cultures, just like structures, are part of the strategy formulation process. As part of designing an organization, managers try to build the right structures, systems, and cultures that provide direction for everyone in the organization, helping them work together in a coordinated fashion and energize them to give their best efforts. And that concludes this presentation.